How's it going, everybody? This is Novakast back with another video, and with this one we'll be doing a quick review of Fear Street Part 1, 1994. This is one of three movies, at least currently when this video goes up, that has been released by Netflix. Directed by Lee Janik and written by Arnold Stein, based on the Fear Street books, as well as Kyle Killen and Phil Gazayabi. Hopefully I said that name correctly. But to give a quick synopsis of it too, and it's actually an interesting film. A circle of teenage friends accidentally encounter an ancient evil responsible for a series of brutal murders that have plagued their town for over 300 years. And it also says, "Welcome to Shadyville." And that is the basic premise. There's this ancient evil that periodically claims someone, has that individual who's possessed go on a killing spree, kills themselves, and then are reincarnated as undead servants to this evil. And that is, I don't know if I want to say that's as much as I want to spoil for you guys, because again, it's interesting, and especially with it being close to, or at least around, the year of 1994, there's a lot of cool stuff. I guess if anything to talk about it, and spoilers for those who have not seen this movie yet, and I ask you guys to go check it out. We have this whole situation where, again, you have, and it actually starts up kind of interesting. In fact, if anything, more so like movies similar, or like, I guess starting similar to movies like Scream, where you have the girl who's alone, who is, just going about her business, and she gets killed by some masked figure. Before she dies, though, she realizes that the killer is actually her best friend, and they kill him. We follow a few characters who, at least to an extent, we get to see each and every one of their perks. Like the main lead, or female lead, Dina, who I guess is trying to get over a breakup but can't. Josh, who is her brother and is kind of a nerd, and kind of remind me of a situation where they had the one character who knows everything about the town, and sure enough, he knows everything about the town, or at least the serial killers. We have Kate, who is the drug dealing friend, Samantha, the lead's, I guess, partner, or if anything, crush relationship. We have other characters as well that are somewhat interesting. Actually, I think, if anything, the more so real interesting thing has to be, when it comes down to the killers, especially with their designs. And I will say, to some extent, casting is kind of short, as far as I can see, when it comes down to casting, because there's not a lot of big names for, at least, like, looking at the cast, like looking at the top cast, there's not a lot of people. But anyways, so it starts off with this one girl, Heather, at a mall, or after it's closed, being killed by a masked figure, and that masked figure then being shot. And after that, we have, again, the main lead, Dina, who is dealing with a breakup, whose relationship, or person she broke up with, her ex, apparently moved to another town, actually more so a competing town with their football team, mostly due to a divorce. But another thing is the fact that both Sam and Dina are lesbian, or bisexual, which there's nothing wrong with that. which honestly, and I will say when it comes down to like the relationship stuff, I mean they don't. I don't want to say they over focus on it, but if anything, like when they do focus on it, it's at kind of like at appropriate times, especially with certain situations. There's one makeout scene that was weird, especially with like what happens later in the movie. But again, I think I'm kind of going ahead of myself, or getting ahead of myself. But anyways, so Dina meets up with her friends who are looking at everybody apparently kind of being weird, especially when it comes down to the character Heather, who was the girl that we saw get killed in the beginning of the movie, as well as people reciting a rhyme for the witch that apparently or supposedly haunts the entire town. So with everything, especially with the recent deaths, their principal, or at least Dina's principal and her friend's principal, decide to have a mandatory candle vigil for the people who were slain by what they're now dubbing as the Skull Mask Killer. They all show up, and the rival school, which was Sunnydale, proceeds to start shit around the same time that Dina and Samantha are dealing with their own shit. And it ends with a fight. Well, actually, not really ends, because as they're driving home in the bus, or the bus that they came from, Sam with her douchebag boyfriend, which, if I remember correctly, was played by not Simon, or it was Jeremy Ford, who played a character by the name of Pierre. Yeah, the dude is a douchebag. The guy was the douchebag. He's following closely behind the van, and they're throwing bottles at the bus, for which Dina gets the bright idea to take a water cooler full with, I'm assuming, Gatorade, and try to toss it at the car, even though Sam is sitting in the passenger seat. But something weird happens. I guess Sam's nose bleeds while Dina's kind of starts to bleed at the same time. And within all the confusion, she ends up accidentally tossing the drink cooler, which hits the car, and the car careens into the forest. Sam is able to kind of pull herself out of the car, and after putting her hand under some, well, it looks like red, I want to say branches, or at least shrubbery or something, or just, I guess, plant, some red plant life. There we go. She starts having visions of what could possibly be the witch, and things just kind of go downhill from there. After spitting up blood on one of the main characters, which I think was Simon, on the top of my head. But anyway, so after the initial situation, they're questioned by the police, and they do something really weird, especially when it comes down to talking to the police. They don't. I guess it's implied that the police can't be trusted, because they all tell them a lie about what really happened. And to be perfectly honest, I think if they were told them that somebody was fucking around, then somebody would have been arrested and may have caused problems for both towns. I don't know. That's just my headcanon. But anyways, they all separate. Sam and her douchebag boyfriend go to the hospital. And I make that little detail that the boyfriend went to, because something occurs in a second, and I'll talk about it. Dina and her brother go about their business, while Katie and her friend, who is on drugs, proceeds to have two little girls sort pills, which I'm going to say is pretty fucked up. But It's made more apparent when I think she knows what she's doing is wrong, and she says flat out to these little girls, "Hey, just so you know, don't eat these, otherwise your little hearts will stop and everybody will be sad." I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's one way to do it. But anyway, going further from that, Dina starts noticing, like, after everything, and after being questioned about her brother about the accident, she notices that somebody is lurking in the darkness. And it turns out it's somebody that is wearing the same getup as the Skull Mask Killer. So she calls her friend Kate, and they kind of go back and forth figuring out what it might be. Turns out it may not have, or at least as far as we know, it may have been Samantha's current boyfriend. But at this time, we don't know that. Or at least we assume that. So Samantha, or at least Dina, then proceeds to go to the hospital where Samantha's at to confront her. And they introduce a really weird character who I guess they referenced it. I had to look back, but they referenced him earlier, called Betty, who helped one of our main leads with a drug-related issue. But anyways, so they go see, with the help of Betty, they go see, by the way, Betty's a man with like a bright pink scrubs, which I thought was kind of funny. But anyways, Betty shows them where Sam's room is, and Dina confronts Sam, telling her that her boyfriend might be a psychopath. But it turns out the boyfriend's there, and in fact, right as they're arguing, the boyfriend gets killed by the true Skull Mask Killer. And it's even made more apparent that as they're leaving, they realize that after, I guess, the mask being removed, that the killer, the original killer, which went by the name of Ryan Torres, he was apparently alive and kicking with a bullet shot wound in his head, about to try to kill them. So they run off, they steal an ambulance, and try to figure things out. They try going to the police, which doesn't work. And during this whole confusion, one of our other characters, which I think is Martin, as far as I know, Martin goes to take a leak, and we have this really crazy moment where he is allured by some singing, and sure enough, there is a woman singing. When he goes to get a closer look of her, she's like covered in cuts, and proceeds to try to kill our other male lead, Martin, with a razor. And with the help of a couple of gunshots or at least bullets that Dina decided to borrow, they're able to escape. But they realize that it may be something that they can't prevent, considering that the killer who tried to kill Martin got up from their bullet wounds, which is insane. So looking further than that, they come across the fact that it may be involved with the urban legend for the town, which was that being possibly the witch. So after that, they've come up with the idea that maybe they should try to put the bones to rest. They try it and it failed, and I thought it was kind of funny that they still did that. Afterwards, they're trying to figure out another method of defeating the killers. But with everything, they begin to realize that as they're being chased, more so than not, the killers avoid everybody else but go after Sam. And there's a reason for that. Apparently, after having another vision too, it turns out that they want her blood. And within the nursery rhyme, it talks about how, you know, that it kind of like describing how if you die, then the curse may be lifted, or you may, I don't know. It's interesting, but at the same time, it's just why. So they did come up with a cool idea where they use Sam as bait to kind of lure the killers into the bathroom, by which they proceed to lock up after using a clever way of using a mop and a bucket. They pour some of Samantha's blood into a bucket and proceed to kind of make travel lanes for the killers and kind of luring them into the bathroom, by which I guess there's a bunch of deadly chemicals, and they use that to try to blow up the murderers. But it turns out that doesn't work, because apparently I wanted to make a really bad, I mean, I still am to some extent, but a really bad reference to Ghost Rider, where you have the moment where Blackheart, after collecting 1,000 souls, gets blown up by the demonic shotgun from Nicolas Cage, and you see him like reforming. That's basically what happened, like after they initially blew up the bathroom. But yeah, they blew up the bathroom, and at first, after escaping once again, everybody thinks that maybe they should just give the killers what they want, which is Sam. And even though with some protest from Dina, Samantha decides to sacrifice herself. But within this kind of crazy moment, we begin to, or at least our characters begin to realize that there might be a loophole to the curse. And that being that in an article that was kept by Josh, one person apparently saw the witch and survived their curse. And how they did it was basically, well, initially they had to kill Samantha, but not really bad, or at least not terribly like kill her where they're like, you know, not destroying her, but, you know, kind of doing horrible things that will, you know, keep her from coming back, but inevitably finding an easy way to kill her and then bring her back. And supposedly that stops the curse. So they go to a grocery store and prepare. Josh is trying to help Kate and Martin, who have been given a bit of Samantha's blood, and they use that as kind of like bait to lure the murderers away from Dina and Samantha, as Dina is basically, after given instructions by Martin, are basically, you know, trying to OD her, which is pretty fucked up. But in the end, that was their plan, which doesn't work. So Dina then proceeds to try to drown her best friend. And while this is happening, we actually get a couple of really gruesome deaths. One in particular where you have Kate basically being shredded up in the meat. I think if anything, it was like meat cutter or like meat saw or something. You know the thing that they use at the delis where they cut meat into slices. That's basically what happened after Kate got a face full of cake. She was then with the skull mask killer doing it, proceeds to place her through the meat saw and inevitably killing her. As well as Martin also getting the axe, quite literally. And the only one left being Josh and Dina and Samantha, who Dina is inevitably able to, you know, kill Sam And for a second, we begin to think that maybe she's not going to come back, but sure enough, she does. And they all kind of live their lives. Now, the last bit, like talking about the last bit, and I was able to talk about this movie for about 20 minutes. I don't want to spoil too much. I ask you guys to go check it out. The last bit, I kind of figured was going to happen. So the ending itself was kind of predictable. Because, especially with horror, sometimes there's no happy ending. But, anyways, Sam and Dina are together. And Josh is basically in his own space, kind of doing his own thing. And what ends up happening is they get a call. Now, earlier in the episode, they tried calling somebody in the phone books, and it didn't work. So they end up, this person who they try contacting begins to ring, or try to call our group. And they mentioned the fact that when it comes down to the witch, it's never over. And we see that firsthand as we have Dina turn around, and all of a sudden she looks like she's in shock, and she looks down, and Samantha basically stabbed her with something. And while Josh is basically typing away at this person in a forum, we like our last final spots or scene is as Josh is typing away, he notices a hand in the reflection of the monitor. He turns around and sees Dina clutching her side, and when they decide to go back upstairs, they find Samantha wrapped in telephone wire, as well as Dina declaring that she's going to help get Sam back, which honestly is a great concept. But anywho, now final thoughts after I have just literally done this video or this review. Characters were okay, to say the least. I kind of wish it was a little bit longer than it was. As well as, a variety of other things when it comes down to the film. I think if anything, it just wasn't motivating me at all. But, anywho, so characters, meh. Story, it's alright. It's different from a lot of other stuff that we have. At least, when it comes down to movies. But, anywho. So, with that, I think if anything, like final rating, I'm going to give this a 6. Yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. There's not much going on with it. But, anywho. Alright, I think I am done for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Truly appreciate it. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below. As well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Novakast signing off. Have a good one. Take care. Peace.